Great. Aloha, and thank you for joining us as we celebrate National Women and Girls in Sports Day, which is all about breaking gender stereotypes built around the sports industry. I'm Alika, the Development Director for Women's Fund of Hawaii, which is a gender and racial equity nonprofit led by Dr. Leela Bilmes Goldstein with a mission to empower local Wahine. We fund programs thanks to your donations, so thank you so much, that help women in our community. With only 1.9% of all charitable donations going to programs that specifically support females, we think it's important to host these bi-monthly educational talks. After all, when women thrive, entire communities prosper. We're so honored today to have Gabby, Reese, and Rhonda Harper as our guests, two leaders who are growing their sport, the sports that they love. So Gabby Reese is a volleyball legend, as we all know, growing up, watching her on every magazine cover. What a perfect guest to have, as this holiday actually initiated in 1987 in honor of an Olympic volleyball player, the late Flo Hyman. And Gabby is married to a well-known male surfer, so why not also talk about women in surf? So we're lucky to have Rhonda Harper, the founder of Black Girls Surf, join us to discuss diversity in water sports. So we have a lot of thoughtful donors at Women's Fund of Hawaii, and we wanted to give our donors a chance to speak to their idol, Gabby Reese, before we delve into our topic today. So Julie Ollison, the ball is in your court. You can come off mute.
Awesome. If you can hear me? Oh, perfect. Well, hi, Gabby. I'm going to fangirl for a second. I definitely had your posters and book growing up and tossed my Mizunos for Nikes, and had you worn a pizza on your head, I probably would have done that too. So just wanted to ask, given the pandemic, have you picked up any hobbies, traits, habits, or outlets on life that you otherwise wouldn't have had we not gone through that pandemic? And if so, which of those do you hope to carry into the future to better yourself, your family, and or those around you or that you encounter along the way?
Hi, and thank you for your kind words. To be honest, I think a couple of things. One is recognizing that everybody responds differently to information or to things maybe that are unsettling or fear or the unknown. And for whatever reason, I think, and I think it does help with who I live with. I think Laird is a good person who, he's always like, don't react to what hasn't happened. And I think just coming from sports, you sort of maybe assess things differently. And so one of the things I was doing was, especially when I went out like to the market or just the few times in the beginning that you're going anywhere, was to kind of have compassion for people, because there was so much insanity and fear and like this weird vibration where you could feel like if you weren't going to be compassionate, you could actually sort of get into a conflict with someone, because we take everything personally, I think, when we interact with people. And so rather than that, just sort of trying to see that people are going through hard times and, lead even more with love and compassion versus, only looking at things through my own lens. And I try not to do that, but that really amplified that sort of practice. And the other thing is, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, if there was any relationship that wasn't, I think it was like a real edit time. I'm sure all of you understand, like you sort of looked at your life and you sort of, I think it was sort of really redefining and refocusing on what is important, how much time do we have for things, what relationships are sort of feeding you and you're feeding them and things like that. So I think it was an edit, a kind of clarity on what's important, but also just to react less, especially when people are feeling certainly more.
Thank you, Gabby. Amazing insight there. And, Julie, thank you for your question. It's a very thoughtful one, considering we're still, in the pandemic. Also, thank you, Julie. Julie just became a monthly donor to Women's Fund of Hawaii. So thank you so much, Julie, for your kukua for our local wahine. So during the pandemic, that was a great pandemic question. So following up on that, during the pandemic, here are a few things that happened to women in sports, just a few things. For the first time, a woman was an official for the Super Bowl. The US women's national soccer team, their lawsuit against the US Federation of Soccer was dismissed. The Tokyo Olympics were billed as the first gender equal games. The Norwegian beach handball players were fined for wearing shorts instead of bikini bottoms. And of course, that sparked a national conversation with us about sexualization in sports. And schools that cut women's sports teams during the pandemic faced lawsuits over equality. And Naomi Osaka made "nah," which is a verbal equivalent of a shrug, a perfectly acceptable answer. And then not to mention Simone Biles and everyone. Viewers, feel free to enter into the chat other things that happened during the pandemic with women and girls that I did not mention because it was a lot. Gabby, of all those things and more that happened during the pandemic, which was a topic you discussed the most in your household with Lord or just with friends? Like, what made you ruminate at night?
I mean, if we're talking about, I have 3 daughters also. I mean, I have a deep relationship with women, be it from sport, being a woman, being a mother, like to daughters. There's a couple things that really come top of mind, which is, in life, there's things that are sort of, we all have obstacles. There's just clearly obstacles, and things can be perceived as unfair. And I think there's an interesting thing where I really am enjoying this sort of like the weight of the conversation, right? So for example, sports is hard and it's a competitive environment. And when we're talking about Simone Biles, there's risk and it's dangerous if you are doing that type of sport. Let's say you're doing volleyball or even tennis. If you're feeling stressed out or pressure, the risk it's different, right? It also is stressful. Like if you're playing any level of sports and you care about it and you start moving up into those levels. So I think for me, the conversation was, how do we bring the new and the old concepts together in the appropriate environments? So why I say that is athletics is difficult. You're competing, people are trying to beat you. Coaches are being tough on you, trying to get you to be your best. There's all these sort of inputs that are uncomfortable. And so there was always conversation about how do we learn how to manage that stress correctly, but not be unrealistic that there isn't going to be stress, or that the minute stress comes, we go, this is too hard. Now, I use an example like Simone Biles, where this is a dangerous situation where you can be hurt if you're not feeling, if you're sort of out of sorts. So it's sort of, I guess for me, it's like, I would like to encourage younger athletes to understand, male or female, but female, you are going to hit things daily in sports that are uncomfortable and that actually put a great deal of stress on you. And you have this in your work life, you have this in your home life. And so I guess my hope is that it's great that now we have this open dialogue, but also that we keep injecting reality, because life is difficult and also life is unfair. And so for me, it's about moving towards solutions and figuring out ways around the obstacles and supporting each other always. But to simply, I think, oh, this is hard, this creates stress, or it's unfair, is going to get us further to where we are trying to go, maybe is not always the most productive. So I think there was a lot of talk around how do we bridge these worlds where we're at now going forward. And certainly, and something I always talk about is self-care. I mean, if nothing brought anything to light, certainly the pandemic brought together. Why do I really love sports? Because hopefully it creates an environment actually for us to be our healthiest, because that's the essence of what it's really all about. It isn't about winning and losing. It's about learning how to take care of yourself, learning how to work with others, learning how to get, up from a defeat. And the notion of champion is not about winning. The notion of champion is that you're building out all these dimensions in yourself that make you a champion human being. And sports just gives you that platform.
No, that's a great answer. I mean, it sounds like from what you were saying, we benefit from being comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Comfortable
That's
being uncomfortable and all that we have to do, because there are stressors every way we look.
I mean, this is real life, and we'd be doing a disservice to people if we were not giving them the message. And it doesn't mean, sort of inappropriate environments for people. I think the other thing is teaching all people, women especially, because it is harder for us to say that doesn't work for me. This makes me uncomfortable. So I'm not suggesting, hey, deal with it. It's uncomfortable. It's certainly having the fortitude to be able to stand up for yourself, but it's also understanding that at times you're going to go to practice and your coach is going to say, that's not good enough. And it's for the greater goal, not because you're not good enough. It's not good enough. Yeah, it's hard. And this is where a lot of growth comes in. As that, I always say the thing I loved about sport is that's actually a great environment that we get to meet ourselves, to know ourselves.
So, Gabby, for those stressors that you mentioned, and you talk a little bit about this on your podcast, which is fantastic. What are some things in your toolkit that you have to help with those stressors, to build that mental fortitude?
One is being willing to put yourself in those uncomfortable environments. It's a little bit like practicing it and taking criticism and not taking that personally. So it's practicing, or it's doing things that, on the day you don't want to go exercise, you're still dedicated and committed to that. As far as toolkits, I do have the advantage of being probably a lot older than a lot of people on this call, but I would say number one is your own self-care. I don't let anyone, my husband, my children, sort of take me down, if you will. Like, I don't sacrifice that for anyone, because I will be of no use to anyone. So if a lot of the people listening to this are into athletics, this is a great way to do that. Number one. Two would be, I check in with myself every day. And what I say to people is, like, you have buckets in your life. You have your work, you have school, relationships, friendships, maybe something that's been on your mind, a dream, these kind of other parts of us. And every day, you check in and you go, well, how is it all going in these places? And do I need to go to work or tell a friend and have a really uncomfortable, very direct conversation because that's not right? So for me, if you said a tool, it's constantly understanding without getting crazy with analysis, but just really being connected to yourself, and saying, well, how's it going? And then learning how to practice, standing up for yourself, creating healthy boundaries. Don't be afraid to set boundaries, even with people in authority. If you have a teacher or a coach or a boss that you have to address, you can certainly do that without being a victim in the situation. And so maybe that's the other thing for me, is I try not to enter situations as the victim, but I'm totally okay with setting boundaries. So taking care of your health and your well-being, that means everything. That means your spirit and your mind, your emotional well-being, your physical well-being. That means being willing to stand up for yourself. And if situations aren't good, if you have a friend that's not good and it's always drama or they're bringing you down, it's okay. And it's okay to be unpopular, right? Like, it's okay for people to be angry at you because you stood up for yourself. That's okay. It really is. And I encourage, especially women, to do that, because it's hard for us. We want to be nice and make everybody feel okay, and that's not the case. And really silly tools I have is I don't gossip. I feel like if you pull yourself out of that, then you're not in that, and it's better. And if you guys are living on an island like I grew up on, and I live on Kauai, your life is better if you don't get entangled in that. Always go to the people, because it just makes everything easier. And just be clear about what you want. What's your definition of success? I think if we're trying to live someone else's life or someone else's expectation, a parent, a partner, a coach, whatever, that is never going to work. So really encouraging people to understand what they think will make them feel good and successful.
Thank you, Gabby. So our next question is, what has your experience been with gender equity, if any, in sports? And do these current conversations trigger any memories of experiences that you had as a pro volleyball player?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, for me, when I first started playing beach volleyball 4-on-4, we had higher TV ratings than men. We were paid more than the men. And so weirdly, I've always been, volleyball is sort of like a female sport in a way. It's almost like the men are the accessories. So we always had it very good. And I've always looked at this. I've looked at this for 30 years. How do we grow? For me, I was interested in growing beach volleyball, which meant volleyball, which meant women's sports. And it was the business of sport. And I think one of the mistakes that we make is we try to compare ourselves to the men versus how are we unique and different and special and great? And how do we market and sell that and make that the premise of the business? Not say, well, we should be like them. We're not like them. And what they do is different and great as well. So what is it about women's sports that is unique and special and celebrated? And so I always thought from a business standpoint, we needed to dive in deeper to that and sort of, showcase that versus, well, I've got next. Okay, well, if you play above the rim and you're playing basketball, it's like all of that stuff that I think when you bring it to a market, to the business, to the reality of it, it's very different. Tennis and volleyball, by the way, women's volleyball net is lower than a men's. So what does that mean? It appears that we do everything the men do. Because you have sports fans and all of these things, right? But what's beautiful and great about the pursuit of excellence in women's sports might be a little different than men. So let's tell that story differently.
Do you feel like there's anyone out there that does tell that story really well that we should?
Well, I mean, certainly Serena Williams is an incredible example of excellence and what it looks like just to be really good at what you do. And I think what I want to say to all female athletes is, by the way, men are your advocates, right? Like they have sisters and mothers and daughters and wives and they like women and they like women's sports. And so it isn't about pushing against anything. It's about going towards. So where are we going to be successful? And then there's a brutal reality on the other side of this, which is, what are your TV revenues? What are your all this BS that comes to the business of it? And so I think there's an interesting dynamic. I am a consequence of Title IX. So I got a full scholarship in 1987 to college. So there's a lot of beautiful elements to be celebrated, but if we have more to go, what's our strategy? What is our story that we need to do to create value?
Exactly. Yeah, we're fans of Serena Williams as well here, and hopefully we've had conversations with her team, and we hope to see her with a Women's Fund of Hawaii event sometime soon, actually. Yeah, she's another, like you, legend, and continuing to really, really motivate a lot of women. So Chanel at ESPN Honolulu wants to know, what are your thoughts on how women's college volleyball has grown since your days at Florida State? You can't answer this, but if you can tell us a little bit more. Chanel writes, what was primarily a regional sport then is now played at nearly every school in the country. And she also wants to know, do you ever think about what you could have earned if the NCAA's name, image, and likeness policy had been implemented during your time there?
No, I mean, certainly I probably, listen, I'm not a person who thinks about that. And I gave up my scholarship after my sophomore year to work and live and part-time in New York. And I played all 4 years at Florida State. And I paid to play my last 2 years so that I could work in fashion. I did the math and it made sense. And so first of all, volleyball, what I love is that beach volleyball is now also a part of college athletics. That really, I think, is a wonderful thing. Volleyball is, for me, obviously, like all sports, I really do love sports, is a beautiful game. So I'm so glad that, it's being played everywhere. And as far as my concern about the money, it's so funny because I believe, I mean, listen, I went to Florida State. I knew a ton of athletes that, it's like you still have to do your laundry. And if you want to go to the movies, you have to pay for it. And if your parents can't afford it, it is a full-time job. it really is. But the flip side of that is if I'm a quarterback and I live in the South and I'm making $1 million a year as a college athlete, how good am I going to be? How hungry am I going to be? How driven am I going to be? So I'm interested to see in the experiment about what's going to happen if athletes are making so much, or what if they make so much in college, but they're actually not good enough to play in the pros. And then sort of like you're 19 or 20 with like the greatest amount of money you're going to make and attention at 19 or 20. Like people don't ever understand the intricacies of all of these dynamics about the psychology of like the greatest time in your life is going to be when you're 19 or 20. That's a little bit tough. So I'm excited because it is a job. These athletes are dedicating and they're making the universities a great amount of money. The risk is going to be, will it take away motivation, or will it also make somebody be disappointed if they don't go to the pros?
But have you, in your experience, Gabby, have you met a lot of women where you've seen that this is happening?
Not yet on the women's side, but I did see a story. You guys might be familiar. There's some twin basketball player girls, really, attractive, great basketball players. I believe they're playing for a university in California. Now, I don't know that they're WNBA material, so forgive me if I'm wrong. However, these girls are making like $500,000 together. And so I'm just saying, so if you're sort of a different thinking, like, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to launch into adulthood, cool. But what if all of a sudden you get used to making this kind of revenue and now you're going to go to university and get a 9-to-5 job? That's all I'm saying. I hope that there's bigger conversations around getting these athletes to think about it from all these different points of view.
It's good. I mean, especially you're probably giving these lessons to your daughters as well.
Yes, and so like every typical household, my daughters, because was in athletics and my husband is in athletics, they're pushing and trying to push in their own world. I have one daughter who plays tennis. I have a 6'1", 14-year-old that's like, yeah, I don't want to have anything to do with it. This is also their job is to break away, which, I try to control myself and not be like, because if you don't love sports, really, because it's hard, I'm not going to, you can't just shove someone's face in it. It just doesn't really work. And I'm their mom. I always say, listen, I'm your mom, not your coach.
And you did modeling as well, Gabby. So was that, how did that come into play? With modeling and sports and
yeah. Survival, I was on my own. I graduated high school at 17. So I went to Florida State on a scholarship. And then when I was 18, I had been given the offer before, but I just pursued athletics. And then it became a viable thing where my coach actually let me get out of spring training because I was on my own, literally. And so she understood this as an opportunity for me. And after my second year, I gave up my scholarship and I juggled both for my remainder years at Florida State. But yeah, listen, I looked at that as a job. That was a way to make money beyond, and I could actually pay for school and do other things. But I felt really relieved when I could turn professional and do that as my job.
Well, you certainly have the mental fortitude for it, I can tell. So we are amazing. I just wanted to reveal the results of that poll. It looks like resoundingly everyone that answered put pay women athletes equal to men athletes. So I'll share those results right now. And again, that poll was, what do you think should be done about the gender pay gap in sports? A, pay women athletes equal to men athletes. B, pay the women according to how much revenue they bring. C, pay the women more if they're generating media attention. And D, pay women more if they outperform men in competition. So thank you guys so much for responding. Joining us now, we do have Rhonda Harper, the founder of Black Girls Surf. Rhonda, thank you so much for being here. And we're such fans of both you and Gabby for what you're doing in the sports that you love. And so we're talking about a little bit about Gabby's experience. Can you share with us a little bit about yours, why you started your organization, and of all the things that happened during the pandemic, which ones affected your organization the most? What got you guys all excited to be doing what you're doing?
So firstly, we started Black Girl Surf out of the lack of representation in the professional surf industry. So what we do here is we train girls to go and compete. So that's what we do. Now, what was it? The second question was, during the pandemic, what was give me the question again. What was
There's so much that happened, right? With
with
the Olympics and Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka. What was something that you talked a lot about at Black Girls, or something maybe that either motivated you or gave you reason, as Gabby was mentioning, to move forward with your mission?
Well, okay, so as everybody knows, there were very few surfers, first of all, in the inaugural Olympic Games under the surfing umbrella. And like I said, we started Black Girl Surf out of the lack of representation. And we had an African surfer from Senegal who was, slated to go. And because of the way that things just worked out, I guess the new system, the trial of it being just a trial, there was only like 40 people able to go, and she wasn't one of them. So all during the Olympics, we just could not wait for the next announcement to see if they were going to go on to a regular schedule, so that all the countries could compete equally on the same platform, not just 18 from the WSL and this from the, like everybody all together, and we're all representing our countries. So that's the thing that we most talked about during the Olympics. Just the fact that there was no representation for us in that inaugural Olympic event. So that makes us at Black Girl Surf work even harder. 3 days ago, we received a letter from the Olympic Committee for the Junior Olympics, because the Junior Olympics in 2026 is in Dakar. Well, I have 2 surf schools there. So we're grooming our girls and we're getting them ready to get out there and perform at a competition level. And I have 12 camps, not just one camp. I have 12 camps. Well, now I have 11 camps. But all of those girls are going, even though they're watching each other grow and get better, they're all going to at one point have to compete against each other. So even though we're all friends, once we get to the youth games, it's on. It's every man for itself. I have all of West Africa countries, South Africa. Then I have like Brazil and United States as well. So we're just trying to build. So there is representation, even in the youth games. Even, Haju is still trying to vie for 2024. And so, we're behind her, even though she's since left, the umbrella of Black Girl Surf, and she's now independent. She's gone through our program and graduated. We're still rooting for her. Once you're here, you're here. Like, even though you aren't like here, you're always going to be Black Girl Surf. And that's what we concentrate on, getting a camaraderie where girls can compete and still have it be healthy, because we have a surf therapy component that is mixed into our surf program. And so we are getting the girls mentally prepared to go into that next competition phase. And we just put Haju under a spotlight for the last 3 years. And I've never seen personally, never seen the ups and the downs that a professional athlete has to go through, other than my boys. The girls are a little bit different than the boys. The boys are just like, yeah, we are, they didn't care. The girls, there's a little bit more dynamics that go into play, like image and all of these things. That, are we good enough, and how do we get better? Those kind of things that automatically come into to us, being the minority and knowing that this is something big for us, this is something new for us, is very hard to feel like you're a part of something unless you see somebody that's represented that looks like you. So this is all new for all of us, and we're just trying to maintain. This morning, I mean, I'm normally a coach, but this morning, coach has to go off and do other things, and this morning I had to go off and do stunt work. So coach can't always be there. You guys need to learn to be disciplined, to continue to train. I'll be back in Senegal soon, and we'll continue the program as such. But yeah, our main focus is getting these girls trained, and I have the best teams around me. I have Brett Simpson, who is the coach for the U.S. team. He's part of Hurley. We're in a collaboration with Hurley. So I have him. I have Eric Frada in Brazil, and I just have a plethora of people that I can go to, even go into Hurley and saying, hey, can we get Carissa Moore? Like, can we get Carissa Moore to come down and be, the role model for these girls so they can see, people of color who are now starting to come into their own. And it's now we're not really so much worried about diversity because that line has been crossed. Now it's time to train. Like nobody has any excuse anymore. Like we're done. Let's get in there. Let's do the work. Compete best you can. Have great sportsmanship. Come in there with some integrity, some respect, and some just dignity, and be yourselves. Because I see a lot of girls that come in right now, even our girls, when they started seeing themselves on the Black Girl Surf IG, and they see that they got 30,000 likes, and all of a sudden they don't want to come to practice because now they're a celebrity, and they say something goes viral, they say that something goes viral, then my kids are just like, oh, well, we're viral, we're celebrities. So they didn't want to come to practice. And so we benched them. And then we brought in some new girls, and then they got the light. It says, you are replaceable. That next one wants your spot, because we only have 5 per country that we're training to actually go on the elite squad. So that's pretty much what we're most worried about at Black Girl Surf, just the competition level and getting us. We're so far behind as far as development and developing Africa and developing Pan-Afro surfers around the world. We're so far behind in that mission. Like I have this mission, I've had it for the last 18 years, 19 years now. And there's just not, if I could duplicate me like 1,000 times, I would.
Well, I can tell you right now, Carissa Moore is a fan of your organization because she is a friend to Women's Fund of Hawaii and our executive director, Dr. Leela Bilmes-Goldstein. So Carissa Moore knows about you, and she is a fan of you as well. And she was actually going to participate in this today, but she has a competition. So of course, I can share that with your girls. Like she knows about you and equally is excited for your mission.
Oh, wow, I'm great.
And before the pandemic, the World Surf League actually in 2019 had made a decision to give equal prize money to men and women for competitive surfing. They're the first American-based global sports league to offer gender pay equality. So I'm sure you know about that announcement too, Rhonda, and all the progress you've made. I'm gonna give people in the room the opportunity to write a question in the chat, and perhaps you could come off mute and ask your question to either Gabby or Rhonda. And so I know a lot of people were telling me that Gabby was their idol growing up. I think mine as well, just seeing her in all those success. And so if you have any questions, feel free to write it in the chat, and we'll ask them before we go today. Thank you. And so Rhonda, ESPN Honolulu has a question they wanted to know from you if you've encountered any resistance for your efforts. Yes. Your mission seems like a cause everyone would want to get behind.
It does, except for the people who, well, okay, so let's just go back for a minute. So one of the reasons why we have Haju is because Haju comes from a patriarchal system where the men are the ones who go out and they do the sports, and the women stay home and have babies and become wives. And the only resistance that we've had is from the federation in Senegal. That's the only one. And we understand it. I mean, they literally told the World Surf League that they don't believe that women should be in pro sports. So we knew we had a fight. Here's the kicker for all men. That same letter that came for the youth games, the governing body that governs the Olympic Games is the IOC, and the one that governs the surfing aspect of it is the ISA. And the Olympic Committee skipped over the federation and came directly to us to invite us to the Youth Game Conference. So that is a humongous step for girls surfing in Senegal. It's like it's equivalent to the burning of the bras. Like it is like a huge movement. And now we've had women low key, you know, behind closed doors tell us not to stop, and I haven't stopped. And I probably will never stop until I feel comfortable in this mission. Like we do have a place and a space for us. And I think that yeah, that was the biggest hurdle, is just getting through that particular federation. Everybody loves what we're doing. I've never had a problem. Nobody, I mean, we have so many people that want to donate and want to volunteer. The only time we have it is when we're back in Senegal. And I understand the culture. Like I said, when I went over there, like you have to take all of the Western ideology and throw it out the window. And then you just have to like work within the system. And that's what we tried to do for the last 2 years. And it didn't seem to work out. Somehow the girls got put on probation, even though the girls were more qualified for the positions than the guys were. So it's just kind of funny that it happened to us, but you know, we're two strong women. All of us at Black Girl Surf are all strong, and we're all going to just go ahead and go forth as positive as we possibly can.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like from what both you and Gabby were talking about, mental fortitude seems to be the motif of this conversation. That's how you're continuing to grow that competitive spirit, because you're really competing with yourself, but having the awareness that, you know, you like, there are many people that want to come take that number one spot. Yeah. So how badly do you want it?
Well, exactly.
Listen, look, oh, perfect. Maya, you can come off of mute if you'd like to ask your questions. A really good one.
I've got babies. Hi.
We love babies.
I really, really appreciate like everything that we both said, and I actually have a daughter here, and you know, trying to figure out like what sports do they get into, and my baby boy. But my question was for Gabby. You know, what other sports did you play growing up, and was there a moment in time when you knew that like volleyball was your calling? Can you talk about that moment, the calling that you might have had?
You know, I'm probably different than a lot of athletes that end up playing in college or professionally. I was a late bloomer. I grew up in the Caribbean, in the Virgin Islands, and then my junior year, and it's not different than Hawaii, where sometimes it's like really good when you're young, and then it can be sort of idle in the middle. You know, like this young, as teenagers, sometimes there isn't as much to do. And maybe if you're on Oahu, there's more action. Like on Kauai, sometimes kids can really run into stuff. And so my mom moved me out of St. Thomas my junior year. I was 6'3" and 15. I landed at a very small school where if athletes were my size, they went to bigger schools to try to get attention. And I lived in an athletic lifestyle, but I was not really in intense organized athletics till later. And then I played basketball, which I think I was better at than volleyball because I had a better coach. And I played softball, but volleyball was just very fun for me. I went to a blue chip basketball camp, and that's really what made me go, oh, if I'm going to do 4 years, I'm going to have a net between me and my opponents. Because if you go to a blue chip basketball camp, you get it real quick about how tough the girls are. And so for me, it was that, and it was just every sport has a rhythm, surfing or volleyball, or they have rhythms. And I think we jibe with the rhythm of whatever sport. And I think it's really important that we teach young kids, young girls, it's about playing. It isn't about like, you have to do a sport, and let them discover what rhythm they identify with. And I think the other important thing is that you model it. If you really want, and what do we really want? We just want them to learn to have a different relationship with their body, especially when we talk about girls, other than how do I look? It's like, my body's a tool. It brings me on a journey. I can do fun stuff. I can do hard things. It makes me strong. It makes me feel good about myself. And I think that that's really what we want with sport, not, okay, you have to do a sport and do that, because I think people have to find that in their own heart.
Thank you, Gabby. Great question. Great question, Maya. You know, funny story about modeling that you mentioned, Gabby. So when Serena Williams and Venus Williams came out, I remember my parents getting a tennis racket and telling us that we were going to start playing tennis because they wanted us to be the next Venus and Serena, which was funny because I had only played piano up until then, never played a sport. And so it is interesting that you can't just give a child these, these athletics and then tell them to learn it. It has to be something that you see modeled, or you see someone else doing it and you're inspired, or you feel that like calling to do it. And so yeah, you give a really good point in that last answer. Any other questions coming in?
I have a question, but I have to tell Gabby we've come in a full circle. I met Gabby about I can't even tell you how many years ago at a Hilda Bay Universal thing that was happening in Santa Monica. And so it's weird that now we're sitting on the same panel. But it's just life. But that's how hard I was working at the time. I met her and Laird at that time, and
Wow.
I don't even remember how many kids you had at that point. I'm not even sure. I mean, I know it was a while ago. So it was like when I saw Laird, and the last time I had seen Laird was probably North Shore or something. So it was kind of neat to meet, this person, this writing giants type of guy, and Gabby as well, especially with her career. But I do have a question for her. Do you see more diversity in women's volleyball than there was, say, when you were playing?
Volleyball, interestingly enough, it's a tricky thing. Volleyball is like what you would consider a middle, it's like tennis. It's like a little bit of a middle upper class sport, right? Like if you want to play club volleyball, see, I never really played club volleyball. I played 2 tournaments and that was it. Then, you have the parents that put those kids in those systems, and then it becomes, that's what you're talking about. But as far as like athletes, national team, all of that, volleyball's always been diverse because it was really talented athletes playing the game. And so in that way, right, I feel like in certain levels, like these club volleyballs, which the parents are all paying for, maybe there's less diversity. But when you start really to this sharp end of the stick, and you start looking at universities, and you start looking at like who's getting scholarships, and you start looking at who's on the Olympic team, it's always been diverse because it's really just about talent. I mean, but it is an interesting thing where the presentation, right? Like, it's like, which sport is for who? Like certain neighborhoods, girls might even think, oh, that sport's not even for me. It's like, I can play basketball. Soccer, is there even room for soccer? It's like, I get that where, it's like, oh, that's not for you. And think about Hawaii. It's like, oh, surfing. Yeah, you can surf. Anyone can surf. Right. I mean, my husband grew up in Wahine Valley with an outhouse. Like, I think he had his first real new surfboard when he was 14. And believe me, he'd been surfing a long time. So there was no barrier to entry, where some of these organized sports, you can see that.
I played volleyball when I was a kid, and I was hoping that my niece would take over, but she went into water polo. Wow, that's another sport I'm not mad about.
Talk about one of the hardest sports to play is water polo. That's brutal.
She decided not to do it. She wanted to be in water polo, and she was really good at it. She got a scholarship and everything. I was like, you go, girl. You don't have to play volleyball. You have to follow auntie. But now she wants to follow auntie.
Yeah, well, she likes that contact, man. Volleyball, water polo is no joke.
Yeah. She's no joke in the water either. It's amazing. But I'm seeing more diversity in women's sports, and I know that Alika, you asked earlier about how I felt about the WSL and their equal pay, and I would just want to say that was equal pay for the 17 girls that were on tour. It did not trickle down to the division under it, which is the league. You have to get points in order to qualify for the CT. So it was the CT girls. It wasn't the QS girls, because we're still right now still fighting for them to equalize that pay. Like if you go to Senegal, they have $20,000 for the boys, and then they have like $2,000 for the girls. So it didn't trickle all the way down, but we're still working on it. I'm still talking to the WSL about fee schedules and things that they need to change. I'm constantly in people's offices talking about how to diversify and give access where access is needed, especially in sports, in surfing. And so I'm seeing changes within their system and their program. But honestly, like when it came out, I couldn't really speak on it. And the reason why I couldn't speak on it is because we weren't included. We weren't in the conversation. There was none of us that were sitting there saying, hey, you know, what about us? Why don't we have access? And how do we get to where, you know, we're going? I'm fighting for that. So I can't fight for the 17 girls. I have to fight for the millions of girls or the thousands of girls who may want to come and join this sport in the future. So that was my response in every interview that I did while that was going on. I was more concerned about the broader picture than just that 17 girls until the league opens up and you have more contests and you have more girls on tour. It's a very small amount of people who are actually getting the equal pay. So that was my thoughts on the equal pay situation with the WSL.
That's good to know. No, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Didn't see that part of the discussion come up as much as the big headlines. And so, I love that quote, Julie. Women belong in all places where decisions are being made. I actually have a T-shirt that says that from Women's Fund of Hawaii. Okay, so the
It's
last
true.
question for today is from Tanya Rosado. Tanya, you can come off mute. I know this is a good opportunity to meet an idol for so many people. So Tanya, you can come off mute and ask your question to both Gabby and to Rhonda.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you all for your time. This has been really valuable just listening. And yes, I am a longtime fan, Gabby, and played volleyball myself. So my question is around being a mom more so than anything. So I have 3 kids and, you know, they play a variety of different sports, but it seems like more than ever, kids are specializing in one sport from the age of 1 on and only focusing on that one sport. And it seems like that it's probably more of a fallacy, but it seems like in order to be successful in high school, you have to have spent endless years in club or, you know, whatever sports, you know, you're playing. So what age would you recommend a child really focus and specialize in that one sport versus a more diverse?
Okay, well, so Tanya, for starters, I think that we all have to ask ourselves, what is the end goal for the child? Because every parent thinks, and I'm not saying you, but I'm saying parents are there with their 6-year-old being like, it's like 1% of high school athletes get college scholarships and 1% of college athletes play professional. So I think parents first have to go, well, what do we think is and that's never put a limit on things. I mean, like the fact that I played college athletics and beyond is very unusual, meaning no one in my family expected that. So we don't know. So what I was going to say is if the end goal is not university, then you never limit it, because also we have to remember this: repetitive trauma, repetitive motion, whether you're paddling a surfboard, throwing a pitch, hitting a volleyball, hitting a golf ball, this is very hard on the body. I have an artificial knee. There's a price, by the way. There is always a price, and there is a price for this much workload. So first is, what's the goal? Oh, the kid's just doing it to have fun and create camaraderie and discipline, and they're competitive. Great, let them do everything. They think they might want to play beyond Division 1, 2, 3, whatever. Then it's a real conversation with the child. What's calling you? Because they might be better at one sport, but they might love another sport more, and they might be good at that one too. I have a lot of friends that play professional sports. They were actually better at another sport, but they love this other sport better. It worked out, because you need to have that love. So ask the child then. That's probably 14 or 15. And a lot of parents don't listen to parents. They'll trip out and be like, oh, you've got to get junior in this club. No, you don't. And by the way, if kids are talented, they're talented. I hate to say it, it's mean, but if certain kids are athletic, they can come in and gas some kid who's been in club with private lessons all day long. It's got nothing to do with it. So it's really, first, keep them diversified, do everything, different people, different sports culture, great. They say, hey, I want to zone in. Probably about 14 or 15, have that conversation. Ask them what they want to do, because it is hard. And if they don't love it, what is the point? And it still goes back to this. What is sport for? It's fun. You work together with other people. You get to know yourself. You learn how to work hard. You learn how to win and lose. It's not about being a professional athlete or a college athlete. I know a lot of people that are out of balance that did both very, very well. So use sport for what it's really supposed to be, which is to feed the human entity, make that better, not they were a winner there. And so I think it's, and I can say that because I live from this point of view, but I'm telling you as a parent, it's about sort of doing it that way. And don't listen to the other parents because they have no idea, and they have no idea what it takes. None.
Very good. On that note, Gabby, thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you.
I mean, that was a great question, Tanya, and a great response. Gabby, you know, we really appreciate you and Rhonda taking time out of your full schedules. And Gabby, I know you're traveling tomorrow, and you've got so much going on, and you're with your families, both of you. Thank you so much. I know everyone has Zoom fatigue, so I want to thank our people that tuned in today as well. These Wahine Speaks will soon be in person once we can gather in a room, but we thought this was an important one to have because, I mean, hello, legends. We wanted to make sure that whatever time worked for Gabby, we could do this today because we're so inspired by you. I'll put in the chat how everyone can donate to Women's Fund of Hawaii. It all goes toward, it stays local. We're a local nonprofit, so it helps the women in our community. Thank you guys so much for joining. Don't forget this will air, if you want to share with friends, it's going to air on ESPN Honolulu tomorrow on their Facebook page.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh, wow.
I appreciate the work that you guys are doing because it is really important. You know, I can say that what impacted me was outside influences and mentors, right? So you're creating that environment. That coaches changed my whole life. And so I just want to say that, you know, I really appreciate that because that's actually the powerful thing. If we can get young women through being young, through adolescence, that's ultimately the success. I mean, if they go on and they kick butt in their, 20s, 30s, 40s, that's great, but that's their calling, right? If we can get these young women to be empowered through adolescence, that's everything. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for that and for fighting the good and important fights, especially for maybe a lot of these young women don't get that support at home. And I can really relate to that. And so I just don't want you to ever undervalue who you impact by doing this work. So thank you.
I 100% agree with everything Gabby just said.
Well, I'm thanking you though. I'm thanking
You're thanking me?
Yes, because that's a lot of work, and that's the big stuff.
That means a lot because it is. It's a labor of love, and it's very hard to do, and it's hard to bring these girls up that come from all these different backgrounds and all these different situations, and we try to keep them focused on their education and say this is the way out. Like, yes, you can surf, but the education component, which is the reason why we pay their school fees, is so that they can become something else. They hadn't even gone to eat out to dinner at a restaurant, and they were like 15, 16 years old. They had never been to art museums. This is what we do around the world. We take these girls and give them the opportunities that they would not ever have. And that's probably the best part of my job. I mean, I love surfing. I'm not gonna lie, but being with my girls, I mean, I miss my girls in Senegal. I miss my girls in South Africa. I miss my girls. They're a part of who I am. Everybody asks me how many kids I have, or do I have kids? And I say, yeah, I have 400. So we're all we're all here. We're one big, one happy family. But I want to thank you because that means a lot coming from you, especially knowing your background and what you've gone through in your career. So thank you, because I'm trying to be the best coach that I can possibly be. I might not be number one, but the best one that I can be for myself and for the kids.
Rhonda, do you have any
And
books?
Alika, thank
This
you.
question is, of course, this was enlightening for me as well. I have a 5-month-old, and so I'm learning a lot too about, because of course we want to see him play every sport, and so I learned a lot as well, actually. Tanya has one more question. Do you have any books you recommend, Rhonda, and how to become a great mentor or coach? And Gabby as well. Any books you recommend? You mentioned a couple of good books on your podcast, Gabby, so maybe we'll just have you answer that question before we leave today.
Yeah, I think Atomic Habits, I don't know for coaches necessarily. I'm just trying to come off the top of my head. I have so many books. Atomic Habits, and for older people, meaning adults, not the young girls, there's a book called The Courage to be Disliked, and it's basically based on Adlerian philosophy, which really has a lot of interesting points, and also really reminds you at the end of the day that the highest form of like living and being is really being of service. But it's actually quite a good book. So Atomic Habits is excellent, and I can post some on my podcast too, because I read a lot of books. So
Perfect. I'm writing. I'm taking notes too. Atomic Habits. Okay, great. And then everyone, in our follow-up email, we'll send you a link to Gabby's podcast. There's like awesome guests on that podcast as well. So we'll send you a link. Thank you everyone for joining. And tomorrow is going to be National Women and Girls in Sports Day. So celebrate and post some pictures and tag WF Hawaii for us. Bye everyone.
Definitely.
aloha.
Thank you.
Bye.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. Aloha. Mahalo.
Thanks so much.